Hi, Donald here with another tips and tricks. And this tips and tricks is on kayak anatomy. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. I'm just going to go over basic anatomy of a kayak. And I'm going to use a sit on top kayak, sit in kayaks. They're very similar. They have a lot of similar anatomy, but there are some specifics that a sit in that I will get in a different video when I actually obtain a sit inside kayak. So for right now, this is just for sit on top kayak anatomy, and this is basic anatomy of a kayak. So first thing I'm going to go over is the bow and the stern. So the front of the boat, or the front of the kayak, this area is called the bow. And you usually have a handle or of some sort, whether it's a fixed handle or a bungee cord handle, something on the front to help pick up the front or the bow of the kayak. The rear of the kayak is the stern. So that's how we get stern-mounted trolling motors, stern-mounted things, stern-mounted rudders, things like that. So the back of the boat is the stern, the front of the boat is the bow. So that's your first two basic ones that really everybody refers to. The next one is going to be the left side and right side of the kayak. When you're sitting in the kayak, the left-hand side is called the port, and the right-hand side is called the starboard, or starboard if you want to pronounce it that way, but starboard. So the starboard is on the right, port is on the left. Easy to remember because port and left both have 4 letters. Number 5, the top side of the kayak, right? This whole top side. So if you take the kayak and divide it in half, so this is the top half, that's the bottom half. The top half, the entire top half, is called the deck. The entire bottom half is called the hull, right? And we're going to kind of dissect that a little bit more, but that is your basic anatomy. So the top half is called the deck, the bottom half is called the hull. On the top half, you're going to have some areas that are going to be specific. So in the front area, you may have a cargo area that may or may not have a hatch, such as on the the ultralight over here. We do have a hatch in the front. This one we just have a cargo area on this CK1 Venture from Crescent Kayaks. The next area we're going to talk about is the area in front of the seat. And that is what is referred to as the cockpit. So this is the cockpit here, not necessarily the seat area, but it can include the seat area. It just depends on kind of where you want to include that cockpit. It can go from all the way from where your feet end up or where you can mount things all the way to the rear of the seat. But for me, the cockpit is this area up here. And then, of course, we have the seat. Now, you can have a raised seat like this, like a lawn chair style seat, if you will. Or you can have a seat like this one that is a fixed seat that has no adjustment whatsoever. Within that cockpit area, you are going to have your footholds of some sort. And that can be foot braces, that can be foot wells, that can be foot pegs. And to give you kind of an idea of the differences, these are foot braces, these are foot pegs, or they're foot braces. However you want to, they're really called foot pegs or foot braces. They're just kind of different terminology from different companies. These are foot braces as well, okay? The difference in these foot braces and foot pegs and foot wells. So I like these as foot wells because they're welded, they're wells, right? The wells are non-adjustable. You can't move those. Those are fixed positions. So you're just going to have to figure out what position your feet and legs fit best in those foot wells. Feet pegs or foot braces are adjustable, right? See, so it adjusts with you. Those are foot wells. Foot wells are not adjustable. The next one inside that cockpit, you may have, for this instance, you have your scuppers, or scupper holes as a lot of people call them. I did a video on scuppers, scupper holes, and scupper plugs. Please look at that video for a more detailed description of scuppers. But what the scupper does is allow water to drain outside of your kayak. That is the biggest thing it does. Let's see. It's moving back. Of course, you can have side handles, you can have cargo areas, you can have rails, everything else. But this is basic anatomy. So in the rear, behind the seat, we have an area that is even in the smaller kayaks. And if I can move this one out of the way for just a moment, even in this recreational style kayak, there is an area behind the seat for storage. That area is referred to as a tank well. And I did a video on tank wells and why it's called tank well and the history of tank wells. Basically, a tank well is a place where scuba divers began to use sit-on-top kayaks to go scuba diving, and this is the area where they would actually place their scuba tanks, so it was kind of deemed the tank well. Now it is still called a tank well or rear cargo area. You can use this for a lot of different things. A lot of people put milk crates or storage boxes or storage crates or whatever is going to go in here. A lot of them have a bungee system or straps or some sort to secure whatever you're going to put on this thing. So that, let's see, I covered the bow, handles, front storage area, right, or cargo area, if you have a hatch. Now, there are hatches that are round, there are squares, there's big hatches that flip up. All a hatch allows you to do is access the internal cargo area that's between, like inside the kayak. That's really all a hatch does. It gives you some dry storage or semi-dry storage, and it gives you access to inside the kayak. You can store things there. It's a great feature if you're looking for something. This boat happens to be a sealed kayak. There are no hatches on it. Coming back, you've got the cockpit area, which is this whole area here. I like this area, but a lot of people include the seat, so we'll do that. This cockpit area, that is a flat deck if you're going to be fly fishing like some of us do. The bigger, the flatter area, the better it's going to be for fishing. But as you can see in this area, this cockpit is a little bit different design. It's got a hump here, and this hump is designed to get your legs some relief. So you're not sticking your legs straight out. Your butt sits here, your back sits here, and your legs are kind of supported by the hump, if you will, in this kayak. Then you've got the foot braces or foot wells or foot pegs of some sort to put your feet. And then behind or within that cockpit, you also have the seat, whether it is a raised seat like this that may have one or multiple positions, or a fixed seat like this on a recreational model, or some other models that are still fishing that just do not have this kind of a raised seat. Behind the seat, you have the tank well. In that tank well, you have some type of cargo security system or securing system, if you will. You also have rear handles, and in the back, on most kayaks, on one side or the other, you will have a drain plug. So that is pretty much the top side of this kayak. So I'm going to flip this over, and we're going to go underneath and discover or look at what consists on the hull of a kayak. All right, so here you are on the hull of a kayak. All right, the hull is the bottom, okay? A keel, if I can tilt this just a little bit, I'm gonna see if I can't get this position just a little bit. A keel is gonna be the part of the kayak, excuse me, that goes from bow to stern, and it's a ridge. So it's a bow to stern ridge hull, bow to stern ridge on the hull of your kayak. That is what a keel is. A keel helps with tracking, it helps with maneuverability, but it really helps with tracking and some speed in some instances. So that is what a keel is, and the keel is the raised part, or the ridge, if you will, on the bottom of your kayak that usually goes from bow to stern, and it may not go the full length of the kayak, it may go only partial the way of the kayak. In this model, it goes about 3/4 of the way of the kayak. The more keel, the more pronounced keel, the better tracking you're going to have, but the less maneuverability you're going to have for the most part. On that bottom, you also see the scuppers, or the scupper holes, right? That's where the water drains out. And then sometimes on the bottom of a kayak, you may have a rudder in the rear. You may have a skeg in the rear. A skeg is, you can see on this one, it doesn't have a skeg per se, but it is kind of a skeg. This is a continuation of the keel, but it is a skeg of some sort. And all a skeg is it's a static fixed fin that helps with tracking, okay? And a rudder can also be mounted to some kayaks, and a rudder flips down and kind of offers the same thing a skeg does, except where a skeg is a static fixed fin, a rudder is an adjustable flip down fin that helps with tracking and, of course, steering, because you can move that rudder left or right, and it helps churn the kayak. So that is it for the basic anatomy of a kayak. We basically have 15 things, 16 if you count the drain plug. So I'm going to go over this real quick one more time. On top, we've got the bow in the front, stern in the rear. We've got the port side is left, starboard side is right. 5 is the entire deck, the entire top of the kayak. 6 is the hull, which is the bottom part of the kayak as a whole. 7 is the keel, which is that pronounced or bow to stern ridge that's on the hull of the kayak that helps with the tracking. Number 8 is your seat, whether it's a adjustable seat or a fixed seat, just as such. Number 9 is your foot holds, your foot wells, your foot pegs, your foot braces, adjustable or not. Number 10 is your cockpit area, right, which may include the seat if you want to get particular, or it's exactly this area right here. Number 11 is your hatches. So your hatches allow access into the hull or into the cargo area of the kayak so that you can get for storage and things like that. Number 12 is your scuppers. Your scuppers is what allows water to drain through the kayak on a sit-on-top kayak. 13 is your rudder, if your kayak comes with a rudder, or you can add a rudder as an accessory, and the rudder is an adjustable flip-down fin that helps with tracking and steering. 14 is a skeg, and a skeg is on the bottom of the kayak, usually towards the rear, or what's the term? Stern. You got it, towards the stern of the kayak on the bottom, and usually can be part of that nice defined ridge, which is called a, you got it, keel. The rear or stern part of the keel will usually contain, or if your kayak has a skeg, it will be in the rear. Now, they do have removable skegs or sacrificial skegs where you can bolt them back on and off. So if it gets wore out, you can take it off and bolt a new one on, and it works really great for rivers and things like that, oyster beds, things like that. But rivers, it works really well. Number 15 is your tank well, right? This area back here behind the seat where you get you a storage area. Just to secure some things on top of your kayak. And 16 is your drain plug. So that is it for basic anatomy of a sit-on-top kayak. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns with anything I went over today. And please tune in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central right here on the Floating Feathers Kayak Fly Fishing School channel to see me with more tips and tricks. And until next time, tight lines and safe paddles.